social enter social enterprises are making a lot of noise in the country, right? I'm sure most of the participants would agree. And of course, making noise for all the right reasons, for the good work that they're doing and because they're growing in scale. Uh, Social enterprises basically are those businesses where obviously you have certain social objective, and primary goal is basically you use a commercial structure to kind of run your organization, but then at the end of it you also have a social objective. So in simple terms, what I'd like to say is that it's a hybrid sort of a structure, that you have commercial elements as well as it is sometimes non-for-profit organization. And like any other corporate, obviously profit generation is extremely still important to these social enterprises. But the difference here is basically instead of using the profit to distribute it among shareholders as dividends for a normal enterprise, with social enterprises, obviously these profits are going to be used to reinvest in the enterprise to help it achieve its social mission. So if you can just kindly move on to the next slide, please. So now, having said that context, right, and kind of making everyone aware of the concept of entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship, uh, now we come to basically the startup, right? So under the MSME umbrella, so what is a startup? A startup is basically a young entity. You're very new. Uh, you're trying to solve a problem. You've identified that problem through the research in the field, and you've come up with a solution that is slightly innovative, it is disruptive, and that's why you want to you get that tag of a startup, right? You're a business venture similar to an enterprise, but because you're young and because you're leveraging technology or your solutions are innovative or disruptive, hence you identify yourself as a startup. Moving on. Just in policy, on paper, what are the definitions of a startup and what are the kind of entities, agencies like us support? So, Startup India, again, that's basically the central body that comes under the Department of Industries centrally. DPIIT is the nodal agency. And for us, our mission, AIIDC, is the nodal agency. So, just a little, the concept is the same, the framework is the same of who we are trying to support and who we are trying to enable, a little tweaks here and there. So obviously here, if you look at the technical aspects, the turnover should not be more than 100 crores is what Startup India is saying. And we understand because we are in this part of the region, in this part of the country, we will not have enterprises or startups of that size and nature, right? So we've tweaked that amount a little. So if you're not exceeding an annual turnover of 25 crores, feel free to come in, like enroll to our program. Similarly, again, they're saying that you should not be more than 10 years old. What we are saying is that, like, if you're not from the biotech space, you're younger than 7 years old, then you come to us. And then in case you're a biotech firm, then like 10 years is the threshold. And because Assam Startup Initiative is backed by the government of Assam, so we want our beneficiaries to be primarily people from Assam or entities that have set up operations in Assam, right? You will get all these benefits because our program is obviously free of cost. This is a government initiative. You will get financial backing, you will get co-working spaces, you'll get incubation support, you'll get market access, everything for free of cost. But the only caveat here is that, like, we want the beneficiaries to have some sort of linkage or roots back to Assam. So moving on to the next slide. So that's the kind of entities that we deal with and who we kind of call startups so that they can take maximum benefits of our program. Uh, Here, what I'm just trying to highlight is that, like I had explained, the concept of entrepreneurship and startup definition wise, conceptually, basically, there is just a very minor difference between both these entity types. So, again, an enterprise is basically something where the idea, maybe it's a traditional idea, it's a tried and tested template. You will have reference models. So you've identified the problem, but you will always have a reference point if you're a traditional enterprise, right? Because that is like a tried and tested formula. But with a startup and with the Startup India movement, which was launched by the PM in 2016, so you're a young entity using disruptive technology, and this word is like key, in the startup ecosystem. I'm sure Ankita and Dhwani will agree with me. So innovative, right? You're trying to achieve, or you're trying to do something innovatively, either your solution, either your operations, either your product refinement, whatever it is, there has to be some innovative element to it. And with that, obviously, there would be a higher risk reward ratio, right? So there is obviously going to be more risk associated if you identify yourself as a startup. But if you're a traditional enterprise, because it's a tried and tested formula, you will always have a reference point. Moving on, please. Again, I'm pretty sure the audience already knows what are the stages in a startup. But again, like I had mentioned at the very onset, Assam startup. So we are sector agnostic and we are stage agnostic. We want to take as many budding entrepreneurs under our wing, nurture them at the nest, and then basically give them the wings to kind of fly and live out their entrepreneurial dreams. So these are the 5 stages that most incubators and accelerators across the country kind of list down in their program. So and this time around, so what we've done, so our incubation program, so we run it across cohort models similar to other government backed incubators. Till date, we've successfully kind of engaged with 5 cohorts. Cohort 5 is our current batch, and in total we have supported 489 startups through our incubation program, and they kind of like range from all these stages, right, that are presented before your screen. So this time around for our Ignite program, so which is basically the idea stage, you might not even have validated that business idea, or you might not even have registered a company, right? So even things like that, we are not like shutting our doors to anyone. So if we think that there is some sort of talent and you actually have identified a problem and you have a viable solution, come to us, get that idea validated. We will give you the approval and the backing. And so that, like, with the support system and how the ecosystem is kind of shaping up in Assam, we'll help you find your own 2 feet and then take this journey of entrepreneurship. So in Ignite, so which is cohort 5 batch, so that is for the ideation program. We have 234 startups. These are mostly students, and through our awareness and outreach programs, we go to technical institutes, colleges, we go to schools, because we understand that this is the breeding ground, right, of the next generation of ideas. And this set of like population is very well versed with technology, and they've grown up in the internet age, so they understand how to kind of interact globally and also how to integrate solutions locally, right? So that is our focus area. So that's why we've kind of tweaked our incubation program as well. Moving on. Again, I'm sure this is pretty self-explanatory. So these are the key stakeholders in any startup sort of ecosystem. Uh, the primary driving force will obviously be the entrepreneurs, the startups, and around you, you have all these other people revolving around you, either to aid you, either to kind of like give you that platform so that you can springboard and scale new heights. Or if you want some sort of like advisory, refinement, you want to talk to someone who's been there, done it from your industry, from your domain. So again, the ecosystem is developed in such a way so that it's conducive for all these startups and these entrepreneurs. And because again, I'm repeating myself, but because we are in government agency, so we have a strong connection and a strong academia connect with all the universities, research institutions. We have an IIM in Shillong, we have an IIT in Guwahati, and we have close tie-ups with them. And how we operate is that we are the central focal point. So we have a hub and spoke sort of a incubation model where Assam Startup, the nest, we are located in Guwahati. So that is the business hub of the Northeast region, the cosmopolitan city. So we are located here, and then we have spokes in different districts of Assam. And very recently, Assam Engineering College and Jorhat Engineering College, they have also been kind of officially recognized as government-backed incubators. So these are our spokes in the respective districts, so that more and more people are aware of the startup concept, and they basically tie themselves to the startup journey. We can move on. So this is just, again, a high-level overview of who we are, what we do. Like I said, AIIDC is our nodal agency. This physical office space was inaugurated in 2019. Our first cohort batch was basically launched way back in 2019, and till date, 4 batches have successfully graduated, and we are currently engaging with the fifth cohort. Startup India has recognized Assam as a leader state now, so that is a positive. So yeah, I hope I'm hopeful and we're positive that like we're making significant strides, and although we're playing catch up, we'll get there someday. Moving on. This is our primary vision and objective. We want to kind of transform Assam into a leading startup hub of the country. Um, of late, there has been a lot of like private investment in the state of Assam and in Northeast region specifically. So Tata has made huge investments. So we understand that it'll have a trickle down effect, right? So it'll create employment opportunities. It'll create opportunities for people to kind of upskill. Technical institutes will probably be brought in here. So again, in the healthcare space, we have a couple of aims now here in the region. Earlier, it was difficult for people from this region to kind of like access healthcare. So a lot of doors are opening up. The government has been progressive of late. And again, that's why Startup India has kind of acknowledged our efforts. We can move on to the next one. So like I had mentioned, so this is our how we operate. So this is our operating model. So we are located at the center. We are the primary focal point. And then of course, we have our district in charges who penetrate and try to like scout for local talent within their area of jurisdiction. And if they find the right set of talent, they bring them to us and we provide them the tools, the academia connect, the co-working spaces, whatever they might need, right, to kind of give shape to their business dreams. So we help kind of like make them realize that. And then we have our local incubation centers. So officially it's Assam Engineering College and Jorhat Engineering College. And as any other incubator, so the things that we focus on is basically, of course, first and foremost would be mentorship, right? You have a business idea. What we are promising to you, or the promise that we are selling to you is that we will get the best of the best, right? So you want, let's say, help with your legal matters. We'll reach out because again, the government's network is the largest, right? So we will reach out to the best legal resource people that are out there. Pan India, we'll bring them on board again, keeping in alignment with the digital India movement, right? So it's very easy nowadays. Like virtual consultation is no longer an issue for people who want professional aid and support, right? So post pandemic, a lot of things have changed and people are open to these things. So if you want mentorship, you want support, or you want to like reach out to industry experts or successful startup founders, so we, as your incubator backed by the government, we will make that possible for you. Co-working spaces we provide, our facilities state of the art. I would request participants, people, if whoever is on this webinar, if you're from Assam, do take out time to visit this property. It's a wonderful setup, excellent facilities, and very modern, state of the art. And people who are not in Assam, whenever you're in Assam, do visit us. We are located at the heart of the city in Ambari, and it's a wonderful property. Again, that's that. And then Market Connect. So because we are a government sort of initiative, so through the government, there are a lot of exposure visits that are organized, right? Nationally, internationally. And because the people that we're dealing with, they're startup founders. So funding is always an issue. So they might have a good product or they might have a nice solution offering, but they don't have the means or the funds to kind of like participate in these events, whether it's national, international. So that's when government intervention kind of comes in and plugs in the gap. So we provide sponsored trips, and we recently took a delegation to New Delhi and participated in Startup Mahakumbh. And through that, our startups, they got basically market linkage, market connect, and we help them kind of grow and provide them the access to market through that. And because this is an incubation program, so once you have completed the incubation journey, you've completed all the modules and the course curriculum that we provide to you. So when you complete your journey, so we have a graduation day, a demo day, and that's when basically we provide an opportunity to you to pitch before investors, right? So it could be an angel investor. In fact, for cohort 4, I'd like to mention this because like our topic is social impact startups. So we even had Upaya Social Ventures participate in the demo day for cohort 4, because we understand in this part of the country, in this region, there are a lot of like social impact startups, right? Whether it's climate related, whether it's agri and allied sector related, whether it's healthcare related. So we do have a lot of promising talent there, which are trying to kind of overcome social problems and challenges, right? So we invited investors from Upaya Social Ventures, and I'm happy to say that like they kind of took interest in one of the startups that pitched before them, and things are kind of materializing, right? So they're going to get some sort of funding assistance from them. So we do things like that. We can move on to the next one, please. Two ways in how we kind of like deal with the startup community from Assam, from the Northeast region. So we are working on behalf of the government, right? This is a government initiative. Two ways we kind of like engage and facilitate startups. One is obviously through our incubation program, right? So you have a business idea, you want to kind of get that validated, you want that approval from industry experts or from successful startup founders, from experts from, let's say, an IIT, or let's say from an IIM. So we will kind of validate that business idea for you, right? And that will happen through the incubation program. And we have basically three distinct incubation programs depending on your stage. So if you're at ideation stage, like I had mentioned, we have the Ignite program. The duration is 4 months. And then the next category would be nurture. So at least you have a MVP, right? Like a minimum viable product, and you haven't done market trials, or even if you have, probably you're in early traction stage. So for them, we have the nurture program that's slightly longer for 6 months. And for our advanced startups who are in the growth phase and they are looking to kind of scale, our program is called Elevate. That is a 12-month program. And our incubation program is basically both virtual and physical. So because this is a government initiative and we have startups from all the official districts of Assam, right? So there are startup presence from all the districts. So we don't always do physical events, but like through our hub and spoke model. So suppose we want to cater to the startups who are in Upper Assam. So we'll do something like, let's say, in Jorhat. And people who are in this region, we'll do something in Guwahati, something of that sort. Apart from our incubation program, the next thing that we do on behalf of the government, so like I had mentioned at the start, so Startup India is basically the central body, right? So the Startup India movement was announced by our honorable PM way back in 2016, and then the Department of Industries and Internal Trade. So basically, they give you a certification. So if you meet the checklist and if you meet the criteria as per their policy, so you get a Startup India recognition certificate. Similarly, Assam Startup, the Industries Department of Assam. So we have this state implementing agency, right? So what we do on behalf of the Industries Department, so we have our own sort of startup recognition process. So for DPIT certificate, it's called Startup India certificate, recognition certificate. From Assam government side, it's called MASI ID. So MASI is short for My Assam Startup ID. So we provide that recognition to eligible startups. If you're fulfilling all the criteria, then we issue you that MASI certificate. And once you have that MASI certificate, basically that's your key, that's your ticket to kind of take benefits of the government of Assam, right? For particularly startups. So we have a policy, the startup policy of 2017, that is currently in practice, but we are in the process of kind of amending our policy. So startup policy 2.0 is probably going to get approved and put into force very soon, hopefully immediately after the model code of conduct, because our older policy is slightly dated and we've done benchmarking exercises of what the top performing states are doing. So we would like to kind of include those provisions in our policy so that, again, end of the day, our startups kind of benefit from it. So making certain refinements, certain tweaks, and hopefully Startup Policy 2.0 of Assam should be kind of approved, finalized, and launched post the elections. And once you have your Masi ID, so that is basically your ticket to get benefits of Assam Startup Policy of 2017. So you have both financial benefits as well as non-financial benefits. And in our policy, I'm sure it's mentioned in the slides which are yet to come. So we have provision for grants. So if you're, let's say, we can move on to the next slide and then, okay. So if you could just go back, please. Right. So this is just a high level sort of overview on what our incubation process is like. So in alignment with Digital India and Atmanirbhar Bharat, so we encourage people to kind of apply online. We have a dedicated portal, so you can apply for it. You can visit our website to see what kind of support that we provide, financial as well as non-financial. And what we encourage here is basically when people fill out their forms, right? So of course we have a proper evaluation and marking criteria. So, and there is this kind of in our assessment sort of criteria, we give special importance to those startups that are trying to solve social problems, right? If they're creating employment opportunities or if they're solving social problems, so we do kind of give preferential treatment to them, uh, because we're looking at the bigger picture. Our objective is kind of like to solve the unemployment problem, right? And make people self-reliant, self-sufficient. So we do give that sort of preferential uh, treatment to those startups who are solving social issues. And we encourage them to kind of like spend time in the field, come to us with the problem statement, and do a well-researched problem statement, identify the problem that you're trying to solve, and then like, yeah, of course, we are there, the experts, and we'll get you connected to people who are part of the ecosystem to kind of like refine your solution, right? But identification of the problem, so we give a lot of emphasis and importance to that. And once basically our startup hunt is over, so we select people, get them on board, and then we kind of like run our incubation program. And like I had mentioned, by the end of it, there is this graduation demo day where you get an opportunity to pitch before angel investors, VCs, and the likes. We can move on to the next one. Just a quick thing on our incubation model. So like I had mentioned, so there are three different programs: Ignite, Nurture, Elevate. And this is how we go about engaging with entrepreneurs and startups from the state, from the region. So we can move on to the next one. So this is slightly important. So how we go about kind of recognizing startups, right? That official stamp that we give, that the government of Assam Industries Department is officially recognizing you as a startup. So again, you apply for it online. We do preliminary check. We make sure documentation is complete. And then once everything is in alignment and we have understood the problem that you're trying to solve and the solution that you're offering, so then we send it to industry experts so that like the process is transparent and free from bias. And after that, we collate those recommendations. And then there is this obviously committee presided over by the government officials. And if they deem you fit, if they think that you're meeting all the eligibility criteria and all of that, and the experts have also kind of validated your business idea, so then we go ahead and give you that MASI. So this is the startup recognition process. The next one, please. These are the kind of benefits that we have, and special provision for startups that are in the social sector space. So there are incentives for startups who are hiring women and transgender people, and also special provision for women entrepreneurs. You get this monthly allowance. The provision of two type of grants. So if you're an early stage, there is a provision of one-time idea to POC grant of rupees 5 lakh per startup. And then you have the scale up grant of 45 lakhs per startup. So in total, the provision for grant is basically 50 lakhs, 5 lakh idea to POC, and 45 scale up grant. And like Startup India, like the seed fund scheme and the other sort of financial benefits that they offer. So you get your GST reimbursement for your IPR and patent protection. So we kind of like reimburse that fee that you might have incurred for your patents. So those are the kind of financial supports and incentives that we provide to our startups. We can move on to the next one, please. This is the overall process. I don't think it's relevant to this discussion, so maybe we can just skip it. This is just the certification from Startup India. We can move on. Just a snapshot of what the numbers are looking like, our impact numbers. So in total, we have 489 startups, and we've officially recognized 272 startups. And out of these 272, 64 have basically received financial aid and support through the government of Assam to the tune of 6 crores. This is in alignment with the Assam startup policy. Top three sectors in cohort 5, which is the ongoing cohort. So you have basically agri-allied, technology, and healthcare. Through our outreach, events, incubation, and all the activities that we do, right, as an incubator, we've reached out to 25,000 plus youth. 272 have received MASI, and the recently concluded grant meeting that we had for financial year 23-24, 10 startups have received MASI financial benefits from the government of Assam. We can move on. Some more numbers so that people are aware of the good things that Assam startup is doing and how kind of government has been very progressive and supportive to the startup community. Created a lot of direct and indirect impact. A lot of job creation has happened directly or indirectly through our ecosystem, and enablement of basically startups to kind of thrive. There are other regional incubators which are like our spokes. So there are 10 in total. External funding. So this part of the region, startups from here have received significant funding from, let's say, VCs from the mainstream, right? So they've come down, they've identified, okay, there is talent here, there is potential here, and that is basically to the tune of 75,000 crore plus. And this includes VCs like, let's say, the Indian Angel Network. Then people have received funds from Step Up Ventures and the likes. We can, yeah. That'll be all. That'll be all from my side. Happy to take some questions. And I'm sorry, I think Priya was messaging me. So just went overboard.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm sure, I mean, it's very, very detailed presentations, and we will speak in some time on the collaboration between the Assam Startup and NSRCEL, how it will work out, because you have so much of extensive offerings. Now coming to Dhwani, sorry for keeping you waiting. We all know who you are, but a little bit about yourself, and if you could also elaborate on how the support from an incubator, for example, in your case, it is NSRCEL, and how has it helped your startup to overcome the challenges and achieve its goals?
First of all, it's always lovely to see you, Ankita. And hi, everybody. So I'm Janishri, co-founder of Self Procurement. Our company is Startup Private Limited. We are a for-profit social enterprise, a bamboo innovation company. Currently, we have two brands. One is Self Procurement, which is a brand for home decor and home utility items, handmade by the artisans in Tripura. And the other brand is called BUT, the Bamboo Leaves Tea. It's a patent pending product in India and United States. Recently got published in USA as well. And PCT published, you can say blend. It's a tea blend, which is great for health as well as beauty. So I still remember back in, I guess it was 2019, 18, sorry, 20, when we got incubated with NSRCEL, and I pitched them the BUT, the tea that we have done. And I still remember it was in idea stage. I had done my research. I had all my documents ready, and I didn't know because it was a very new market. Till then, we only had our brand Silkarman, and we were already exporting in other countries. So dealing in a handicraft based sector was easier for us. We knew how it works, and we already had we had five. Now we have 5 clusters. Back then we had, I guess, 3 clusters, and most of them are women. Now we have increased our numbers. Now we have somewhere around 350 plus artisans working with us, out of which 80% are women. So back then we knew an industry which we have already worked in, but food and beverage was a very new industry for us. And that is where I guess I always say that NSRCEL was the biggest good news that happened to us. Because if it wasn't for NSRCEL, I don't think so we could have actually made or paved our way in this industry, because it's a huge sector. There's a lot of competition. You don't know exactly because it's a very new product, something not done in India. And it's not like if something is not being done, it's not being thought of or it's not being done somewhere else, right? So how you're going to pave that way in your own country, how you're going to reach your masses is something that you cannot anticipate, and you're going to always be anxious about it. So I still remember from guiding us the legalities. I still remember Gopal sir mentioning us that, you have done your research, you have your data, you have all your nutraceuticals, record. So why aren't you getting a patent done? So they actually put it out that, get a patent done. This is how you do it. From providing us the legal help to actually guiding us how to take the product in the market. I remember Sukumar sir mentioned it to us that, don't wait for a patent to be actually granted. It's going to take a lot of years down the line. Materialize it. And we did a soft launch and then we did a proper launch. Naga sir actually helped us connect to the marketplaces. So much so that now we are actually available in 12 stores in Bangalore. So all these things, NSRCEL gave us that environment where we know it's a safe space to bring our ideas, right? It's sometimes it's easy to think about something and it's easier to jot down, but to practically implement it, there are 100 other things that are gonna happen, and there are gonna 100 other things that are gonna come, or on the spot, which you wouldn't have anticipated. And as an entrepreneur, it will always be new. It will be always something different, and it will vary from sector to sector. So when NSR cell or an incubation is there to support you, it's like it works like a sandbox. You are ready to take a swing, but you're not afraid that you will get hurt when you fall down because the floor is not concrete. There's sand on it, right? So NSR cell was our sandbox, and we knew even if we fall back, we are not gonna get hurt because they were backing us out. And now, I mean, just by their support, I still remember Ankita sent me an email of the NID's incubation and said you should apply for it because your company is eligible and it is something that will take you to great heights. And that was the first time we got our investment from outside. So instead of being for a long time a bootstrap company, the grants that NSRCEL gave us, the money they put on, they actually trusted us when they put that money on us, be it giving us, winning us all those grants, pitching us, telling us how to actually pitch. Each time I improved. And now when I pitch, I keep going back to all those lectures that we actually got in NSRCEL that, this is how you keep improving because your stages are going to vary as you grow. And it was such an easy sale because of NSR cell. If we were ready, we had a boat, we had the sail up, and we are taking the sailing in the sea. NSR cell became the wind that gave us that push. So that incubation experience was so heartfelt, and I still am in touch with all my mentors, with all that community, all the women who became part of that community. And even now, if I have doubt, I know I can always reach out to them. Even now, if I have question and I'm like a little lost to what to do, I have a bunch of women who have experienced such a similar thing or are in a pure same stage kind of a thing, and you can always discuss because as an entrepreneur, there's a high chance we feel aloof with our own idea because it's unique, it's innovative, and there are less chances that we will find someone similar who's thinking I like us. But when you have an incubation, there you have that environment where you can talk freely about it. It's like the absolute safe space. So for me, NSRCEL is the biggest hit in my life.
So Dhwani, coming from a founder perspective, right, and specifically when you are based out of a region like Northeast and you come from Agartala, so do you see any kind of notable trends or patterns among the social impact startups present in the Northeast or Assam also for that matter, which are gaining traction? I know bamboo is something which is predominantly available in Agartala. So do you see any kind of trending patterns which are picking up, which you see, by the collaboration between us and Assam startup will really help them to gain that exposure?
I guess there's a huge scope. Like whenever we are there, we go to other educational institutions. We meet students from college. We are also meeting people who are already working. And the problem that comes is they have knowledge, they have ideas, they are very talented, but they're sometimes too scared about or underconfident about it, and they don't know how to approach it. and most of the time they're unaware of the steps. They don't know how to run a business in the modern day sector, because when it comes to startup, it's not our conventional business. It's going to be very unique because there's AI involved, there's digitalization involved, and they don't know how to go about all of this. Like even for us, when we started, we initially started with an export, which is a very conventional way of business, even though we were innovating new designs. But we, at some point forgot that India is a very huge market space for us as well. And when we started a brand here, that entire process of actually having a a streamlined, you can say, fulfillment center, delivery partners, and a proper social media and digital presence was something very important and something new. You know, so I meet a lot of students who have great ideas, but they don't know how to implement it. They don't know how to approach, and a lot of time, because they're inventors, they don't know how a business is done. There's like two different individual characteristics we are talking about, and that's why they get really afraid about it, even speaking about their ideas. So when we have someone like NSRCEL or a Sam startup, it kind of boosts them that confidence. This is a safe space. Come talk about it. We'll tell you how to actually run a business. So all the small nuances, because a lot of time people incorporate their business, but they don't even know how to take an advantage of being a startup, right? And even though having so many amenities, they somewhere lag behind. So all these informations actually help them. Like when I recently met a young person back in Agartala, and he has a very nice technology and everything in mind. From engineering background, and he was so lost on how to run a business. He's like, I'm not a businessman. I don't even know how to even generate profit. Anybody is gonna ask me for that. I'm like, that's gonna come at a later stage. First, incorporate your business and look for a right incubation partner where you have to build a team, because a team is very important. So all those minute steps is something which gets ignored when you're starting off a business and a startup. And that's where I guess incubation partners really help a startup get that, you can say, streamlined platform where they know, okay, where they stand, how to evaluate themselves. That's like kind of very important for new generation startup.
Okay. So coming to your Siddharth, so Dhwani was based in Northeast and still based in Northeast. I think they also have, she just mentioned that they have expanded globally. So would like to understand from you that how the collaboration between NSRCEL and Assam Startup help some of these founders like Dhwani, to mitigate those challenges. There are a couple of questions on the funding part as well, like do you need to be a beneficiary from Assam or, stuff like that.
Sure. I'll answer your question in two parts. So first, the point that you made, right? So entrepreneurs like Dhwani. So first and foremost, what we're doing is like we're trying to create awareness drives. We're reaching out to the remotest of places. Our team is doing outreach activities so that at least people are aware that they can become self-sufficient. They can take this journey of entrepreneurship and make themselves aware of the concept of a startup, right? So those are the outreach activities that we're doing so that we can bring a maximum number of people under our umbrella. And like she correctly pointed out, right? So once they somehow get associated with us through the incubation program, or if they want to like identify themselves as a startup, so we are there, right? We'll help them right from their legal, through their business fundamentals, through their business modeling, their evaluations, and getting them connected to investors. So we're there. So we'll provide them that platform. But yeah, what we're doing from our side is to kind of maximize our outreach activities. The second question, right? So somebody had asked in the chat that like, is it strictly for like, does there have to be some sort of linkage back to Assam? So yes. So again, the Masi grant and the financial benefits that we kind of disburse to our beneficiaries. So it's from the government of Assam, right? So it has to be, you have to have some sort of linkage to Assam. Either your entity is registered in Assam, or you're deploying at least more than 50% of your operations in Assam, right? You're creating some sort of job opportunities, livelihood. So then it kind of becomes it kind of becomes justifiable for the government of Assam to kind of support your cause. Because if you're not from Assam, you can avail all the central government schemes, right? You have the Startup India Seed Fund scheme, you have the credit guarantee scheme. So there are a lot of central government schemes.
Okay. So, Dhani, from your end, what do you feel that what kind of support or resources that you believe would be most beneficial, right? Since you are based out of Agartala and then you got incubated at NSRCEL, but it still didn't stop you from applying for funds. But do you think that there's still a little bit of background check that we need to do when we're applying for funds, specifically for social impact startups?
Yes, it's very important because like we had an entire community already created. Because when we started, we knew there's a gap between the artisans and us. To build that trust itself, it took us a lot of time, and it's necessary as a startup that we have first work on these ground. Like I have a trust, the community trusts me. I know exactly where I'm, headed, at least for the time being, because even if I have to pivot, it has to be a bit ahead because for a social startup, we have to understand it's more like it's a circular economy we are trying to create. It's like I'm pretty sure everybody might have heard of the story of Amrit Manthan. So a social startup is doing exactly Amrit Manthan. We have to bring everybody from the evil to the goods. Everybody has to come together in order to bring Amrit out. And that what happens when we are creating a circular economy. That from artisan to the person, how the delivery will be channelized. All of this is something I have to think on my part. Like for example, when we initially started, we didn't. Our clusters were really far away from the main city. To actually make sure that the goods come from there to our facility, we employed the tuk-tuk walas because they were doing to and fro all the time, right? And it's not like they have their passengers with them, but they can always keep some goods and bring it to us. So this is how we managed. We had 80% women working. Now they cannot come to clusters every day. So we had to make sure that we reach out to them and the raw materials reaches them. These are few things that we have to consider and work on ourselves before we actually approach an incubation, because an incubation is going to provide you with all the other necessary things, be it like financing, be it legal assistance, be it understanding your understanding your own finances. All these, they are small bits, but this is something that an incubation is going to teach you. And for that is ready, that on ground as a startup we should be ready. Like recently it has happened that our delivery partners who were there in the Northeast, they have withdrawn their entire work from the Northeast region, like entirely, right? They have stopped their operations. So we became in a just like, how are we going to work? What we are going to do, because we cannot stop the delivery. We are already a brand, we have a customer base, and they're going to keep ordering. We cannot stop. So the immediate thing we did was we used the government post offices initially to do our, to send our products. We cannot stop there. And then we look how we can actually manage. So we start bringing our products to Delhi and then we started shipping. So these are something that we have, these are something that is constantly going to happen in the Northeast. And I guess I'm really looking forward that there are more and more ventures that are going to come in the Northeastern region, because the reason that the delivery partners stated us was that there are very less vendors in the Northeast region. So their investment was much more and their profit were less. That's why they have stopped all the operations. And I felt so bad about it. I'm like, because there are new generation of people who are trying to do something, but if there are not going to be delivery partners, how are they going to proceed ahead, right? So these are few things that are going to happen. And when you have incubation partners, they are going to help you guide it through. Because I guess one mindset that NSRCEL gave us was that no matter what happens, do not stop. There are always solutions around you. Just look for them, you know so we kept going back to those things. And I know I have mentors. I have Ankita, whom I can always reach out and ask, this has happened, what to do next. So all of these things happen on your part, which you're going to counter and you have to resolve, because the incubation partner is going to actually help you lift up and do things that, you are not able to think right about, be it financing, be it even investors. Sometimes we don't know which investor is right for us. So an incubation partner actually tell you, they are your right investors. Go ahead with them. Mentorship helps us pivot and take roots. Like now we are expanding into industrial products. We are also part of the impact orbit with NSRCEL, and how we are working on that new project, and it's actually expanding. Even Silkkarman has taken its own wings, and now we're soon incorporating the goods from Kashmir and Pondicherry. And we are creating a similar circular economy and cluster based project even in those states. This all happened because your vision is constantly going to grow. You're going to constantly scale up, And in order to understand that, you need an incubation which is backing you up and gonna guide you right. So we on our part has to be certain about what is it that we do best. And we know we create value chain the best. So we are focusing on that. So that is something, I guess, as individual, as entrepreneur, we should be ready with before we apply for our incubation partners.
Yeah, those are excellent insights, Dhwani. And yeah, I mean, everybody has just heard that Dhwani is also part of the Impact Orbit, and we will be launching the next cohort very, very soon. There are a lot of, alumni that you can get in touch with. We are also collaborated with Assam Startup, which means coming to you, Siddharth, there was a question on somebody who is as a startups established outside of Assam, but working with the artisans from Assam. So how do you think the collaboration between Assam startup and NSRCEL will really help such, founders?
Right. So I mean, we are more than happy to kind of help these kind of social ventures, right? So if the ultimate beneficiary or if the Assamese farmer community is getting uplifted, so we would definitely like to kind of intervene and support whatever we can in our capacity, right? Irrespective of where you're from, but if the ultimate goal or the vision of your business entity is to kind of like uplift the farmer community of Assam, so we would definitely look into it and provide you the support that we can. So again, this comes under the industries department. So we will kind of work with the relevant department, whether it's the agriculture department, whether it's the fishery department. We'll get in touch, we'll get them on board, and we'll see whatever is feasible. And we will have to kind of like assess case by case, see the population size, the impact numbers, and definitely we will intervene and support.
Okay, thank you. So we have also received some questions from the participants, but also let's open the floor for our panelists to address them. Feel free to ask any questions that you may have about the support programs, about the impact of it, about Assam startup. We have posted the some bit of information about what we do at the chat box or any kind of impact of social impact startups in Assam. I think there's a question for you, Dhani, as well. From a social startup perspective, can you shed some light on how to go forward with the community? Like Chinmoy is into agriculture, so how does it work and how also social startups go forward when it comes to funding?
Hi, Chinmay. That's a very nice question, honestly, because as a social startup, the first and foremost problems actually comes in community building, right? And as a social startup, you rely a lot on your community. So first would be you win their trust. And for that, I'll suggest spend a lot of time with them because they have very, different problems. Every community is going to have a very different problem. And you have to understand how you're going to frame your own organization, keeping that in mind. Like when we started, a lot of artisans were giving up their craft. They were, rather going for petty jobs because they were like, this craft is not going to survive. So you have to actually think on that ground because they already have some knowledge. How you're going to make it into something new that they will get retained. Then the second deal was to make sure that they are always in workforce, right? Like 24 into 7 throughout the year, they have to have work. So, it's like creating micro entrepreneurs when you're working with smaller communities first and try to cluster them, see what their problems are, and also form your organization accordingly. Like we realized that you're working with artisans in very rural areas. There were chances that, some artisans get used to alcohol, right? They becomes alcoholic over a time because they're working hard also, and there's a lot of different influences around. So we have a HR who's a psychologist, and time and again we make sure they have their psychological sessions with them. She actually treats them to make sure that they do not drift away into something which is not good for them or their family or the entire community altogether. Also, because you're working in agriculture sector, it's very important that you understand what are their problems and when and how they are growing their products. Let's say when we work with bamboo, we have our own plantation owners whom we are working with because see, as an organization, there would be grading that you have to see. In agriculture product, grading is very necessary. If you're exporting or you're looking for global market, then there are a lot of different kind of licenses involved. So you have to make sure that it meets those criteria. And in order to do that, you have to make sure that from the very ground level, how your product is being grown is being taken care of. So that agriculture product you have to see what is its grading process and how it's actually being done or practiced in the region. Farmers are involved, so you have to make sure that to get in comfort with the farmers and see what are their preference. Are they preferring local market, or if they want to grow, how do they want to grow? You know, and make it sure that because it's a social startup, it would be nice that it's organic and not you don't use too much chemical in it. And as of financing for social startup, if you are going for a for-profit social organization, then you can always have a equity-based financing. You can also go for debt financing if you want that. It's your preference. Initially, I say equity is not is a good deal if you go for an equity instead of debt, because for social profit, initial few days might be bootstrapped, but if you go for a equity funding, you'll have funds to run the business. You must expect that your revenue would come up in a shorter, like in some time. It can take a year or two for you to actually see the profits coming in. But there will be profit for sure if you're adopting a for-profit model, right? And if it's a it's like a non-profit organization, then you have ample amount of avenues. You can always go for CSR funding. You can always go for, there are a lot of NGOs that are supported by a lot of different you can say government organizations also. So you can always look for that too.
Okay, thank you. I think
Just to supplement what Dhwani said, right? So again, if you're from the agri and allied space, so there are multiple avenues. So we have kind of expanded our investor pool, right? So there is this grant opportunity through the IFAD Gap Fund. So it's specifically for agri and allied sectors. So there is this wonderful grant opportunity. If your fund requirement is up to the upper ceiling is like 2 CR, so then you can apply to their program, and if you're meeting their evaluation criteria, so then you're entitled to kind of get that grant, right, and then work on your business model. And apart from that, obviously Niti Aayog has recently launched the Atal Innovation Mission, right, to support this objective. So we have Atal Tinkering Labs and Atal Incubation Centers, which are set up in multiple parts of Assam. And with that context, basically, like we have AAU, which is Assam Agricultural University. So they have their own incubator model, which is called the NEET Hub in the campus of Agricultural University in Jorhat. So this is basically an Atal Incubation Center. So there also there is provision for basically grant allowances that you can kind of avail, the funding opportunities that you get if basically you're from the agri and allied space.
Okay, thank you. Also, I think like any other funds, whether it is given by, NSRCEL or Assam Startup, I think somebody asked a question on the one-time POC grant for 5 lakhs. What are the eligibility criteria, right? So the co-foundation for the eligibility criteria in terms of, seeking out for startups remain the same, which means that it needs to be sustainable. It also has some kind of an impact, which is driving economic growth, and also how you are able to build a community around it, which Dhwani was mentioning, right? So even though it's a tech product, yes, tech is an intervention, and it shows also that, funding is more prevalent on the tech side of it, but how much you are doing something for the country and otherwise also beyond is something that we look at. And your team formation also is a balance of a proper team. Having a tech and a business team is very, very important for to see the scalability of that particular model. So I think in the interest of time, we'll have to wind up today's session, but it was very interesting to know from each one of you. We have received some excellent questions. Swani and Siddharth have given some very interesting insights. So as we near the end of our webinar today, I would also like to summarize some key takeaways from our discussions. We have learned about the importance of collaboration, the range of support programs available at Assam Startup, at NSRCEL. We have put up the links at the chat box. So do have, take some time to go through in detail about the different initiatives that we have. We're very much active on LinkedIn, Instagram. So follow our social media pages and do get to know about the success stories of some of our founders and the tangible impact that is achieved by the social impact startups across the country. Thank you, Siddharth and Dhwani, and the participants for joining us today. I hope this webinar has inspired all of us to get involved in supporting social startups impact startups across the nation, also from the Northeast and Assam as well. Let's continue working together to drive some positive change and create more sustainable future for our communities. Have a good rest of the day, all of you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Ankita. Thank you, Priya. Thank you, Dhwani. Thank you,
Thank you so
participants.
much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
everyone
everyone.
for
It was
joining
lovely
in.
meeting you all and having this discussion. Thank you.